Welcome today. Thanks for coming. We're going to talk, as it says here, all things AdWords and Facebook ads in 2018. The latest, most effective strategies. It's really an interesting time to be in the space. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. How's everyone doing today? Pretty good? All right, surviving the first day, getting towards the end. I was just saying earlier, I don't know if any other out-of-towners had as much trouble as I had. 5-hour delay last night in Atlanta airport. Got in about 2 in the morning, so I'm glad to be here, you know. Welcome today. Thanks for coming. We're going to talk, as it says here, about all things AdWords and Facebook ads in 2018. So really the latest, most effective strategies. And you know, when I think of AdWords and pay-per-click advertising, it's really an interesting time to be in the space, in particular within the behavioral health industry. If you're not familiar with it, there's just been a lot of attention on pay-per-click advertising within behavioral health for about the last 12 to 16 months now. Not good attention, a lot of storylines and things that are going on that have caused some certain regulations and oversight to be put in place. So we're going to talk about what that means and really dig into what the process is like for setting up pay-per-click advertising, and some insights and trends that we're seeing that hopefully you can leverage for your own campaigns. And then as it says, we'll talk about Facebook as well, which the two kind of go hand in hand. So really a good timing for this, and really a good topic for today. Just start by going over more specifics of the agenda for the conversation. So we'll have a brief little introduction, talk about where rehab ads and behavioral health ads have come from in the past 12 to 16 months or so, and again, kind of what that process is moving forward. We're going to talk about LegitScript, which is an organization that is now playing a really key role within pay-per-click advertising, and in particular how Google and LegitScript are working together, and how marketers need to follow certain guidelines in order to be able to run campaigns. And then same thing with Bing and Facebook, and look at overall strategies for how you can take some of these insights and trends that we're seeing and really leverage them in your own campaigns to reach the potential right patients in an ethical and moral way, and avoid some of the missteps that kind of got the industry into trouble, as well as look at some best practices so that you're spending your money wisely and kind of get the biggest bang for your buck. And then hopefully at the end we'll have a little time for a question and answer. So if you have any questions, anything comes up, feel free to jot them down, and we should have some time to talk about that. So just a quick introduction. As I said, my name is Brian DeAndre. I represent BetterPPC. So we are a pay-per-click managing firm. We specialize in managing really large, really complex pay-per-click accounts. So as you can imagine, just so many different elements and pieces and parts that go into really complex PPC accounts. And what we're going to be sharing with you, and a lot of the insights that are in my presentation today, are really an aggregate of just data that we've collected over the years through clients that we've worked with, both within the behavioral health space and outside of it as well. So there's really some good key trends and insights that hopefully you find helpful. So let's just, as I said before, take a step back and talk about where pay-per-click advertising has come from in terms of the last 12 to 16 months within this industry. So we had some wrongdoers out there, and if you're not familiar with some of the things that have been reported, some of the stories that have been going on, some people were using pay-per-click as lead generators and selling off those patients' information to other organizations. You had people that weren't being necessarily very forthright when it comes to explaining what their clinic services were or facilities. So there's just been a massive amount of media attention and really a kind of a black eye on the overall practice of pay-per-click within this space. As a result, Google has really kind of cracked down. So last September, they started limiting organizations' ability to even run pay-per-click campaigns, and then in January of this year, they shut it down completely. So for the past 6-7 months, we've kind of been in this holding state, trying to figure out if and when this will be allowed to occur again in terms of running PPC campaigns. And thankfully now we're kind of at a point where it looks like there's a path forward. So like I said, it's really good timing to be talking about this, and we're going to talk about what that process is like. As you can imagine, as a pay-per-click managing firm, we were really excited when Google decided to shut down everything and kind of limit what was going on. But obviously the industry needed some cleanup because there was some wrongdoers out there, and as we say, it only takes a couple bad apples to ruin it for everybody. So let's first talk about LegitScript and what their role is in this. And I just kind of want to take a pulse of the room, and by a show of hands, how many are familiar with LegitScript? If so, has anybody gone to their website and filled out their application? So a few hands here. Okay. So for those that aren't, LegitScript is for all intents and purposes, they've really worked with a lot of online pharmacies as a monitoring and vetting script process organization. They recently partnered with Google in order to create this new process for certifying behavioral health clinics and allowing them to become certified and run pay-per-click campaigns. So this just started really a couple months ago in terms of opening up these applications. And so right now, the only way that you can move forward by running a pay-per-click campaign on Google is to become LegitScript certified. So unfortunately, there's no way around it. As you can see there, it comes with a pretty hefty fee. And basically the process is you go to their website, you fill out a questionnaire application, you pay your fee, and you kind of wait. And you wait to see if you're approved, not approved, or what we're seeing now with a lot of organizations is they're getting an email back that's saying your application is still in process. You weren't part of the initial group necessarily that qualified, but your application is still being evaluated. When you do get certified, you get this little green badge that goes on your website. And the interesting thing that's going on now, and what we've been really monitoring within the past few weeks, is that it was kind of assumed that if you became LegitScript certified, you could then start running pay-per-click advertising campaigns right away. And what's happening is there's another step that hasn't been put into place, which is Google has its own form that you have to complete once you get LegitScript certified. The problem is companies are getting LegitScript certified, Google's form is not live yet or very limited. And so what we're seeing is kind of, again, this holding pattern, this little state of influx where we're getting some organizations certified and they're not quite ready to move forward in order to get pay-per-click campaigns back into the market. So again, this is only really specific right now to Google. As far as Bing, there's some rumors, there's some hints where they might adopt this policy as well. But obviously it's an important piece, and in order to legally run pay-per-click campaigns now within our space, you have to go through this certification. So assuming, fast forward and we're going to get the Google form up and organizations are going to be able to become LegitScript certified, we want to talk about what some of the best practices are for when you're running your pay-per-click campaigns. And so these are all the things that we're going to dive into in terms of different styles of campaigns you can run, call only versus click to website, or what some people call click to call campaigns. We'll talk about some best practices for optimizing your efforts for mobile and landing pages. We'll talk about demographic and geographic targeting, keywords, negative keywords, looking at spend management strategies, and then really how you can focus your efforts even more through qualified calls. Okay. So first things first with regards to a couple different style campaigns that you have the option of running. Call only versus click to website campaigns. And if you're not familiar with these, they're pretty much exactly how they sound. Call only being from a user's perspective, this is something that's only on mobile, and if they see an ad, they will have the only option to tap on the number and it connects them immediately with a call. And so versus the click to website where it gives the user sort of two different scenarios. You can still embed a phone number in there and optimize it for mobile, but it also provides a link for the website or a freestanding landing page that they can go to. So there's really different pros and cons to each. As you see here, call-only campaigns tend to be lower maintenance, lower work, kind of a set it and forget it sort of type of campaign to run. Whereas click-to-website campaigns are definitely much more, time investment and things that you have to do, because not only are you trying to design, write the right copy for an ad, but you're also designing a landing page, you're also creating more calls to action, you're looking at mobile opportunities for that landing page as well. So it does require a lot of work. The plus side with click-to-website campaigns is that the quality of the leads that you're getting tends to be a lot higher. Okay, so for those that are only on call only, all they're seeing is a phone number. They tend to not know very much about you, right? Especially in our space, the trust factor really isn't there. So you get a lot of leads that, while mobile tends to convert more, they might be not the best fit for your organization, or vice versa. You might not be the best fit for the patient as well. Right? And so we look at opportunities where we can implement call-to-website campaigns while also including call extensions. So call extensions basically being an extra snippet within your ad that allows that mobile optimized number to be in place. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Just some other benefits about doing click-to-website campaigns over call only. As I said, it kind of weeds out mistake callers. You get a much better user experience from the patient's perspective, because they can go to your website, they can go to your landing page, learn a little bit more about your services as opposed to just clicking on an ad. And from your point of view, you're reducing the amount that you're paying in terms of paying for leads that aren't as likely to convert, right? Lower quality leads from the business perspective that, again, might not be a good fit. The one thing we do recommend is when you're implementing this stuff is making sure you're bidding higher on mobile. So if you're not familiar with this, you can control in Google Ads how you're bidding on certain things. And we always recommend, even though doing a click-to-website campaign, you should be still trying to optimize your efforts to capture the mobile traffic, because mobile traffic will still, in a lot of scenarios, convert and be just as be more likely to actually call in. So with that in mind, the next step is we're gonna take a look at some best practices for your landing pages. So again, this is sort of the framework of getting your ads out and the types of campaigns you want to be running. And once you get leads and users to land on your website or your landing pages, these are some of the things that you really want to be conscious of. So one of the things is we often see a big misstep in the industry where website language or landing page language is trying to sell the whole program or trying to sell the whole clinic, right? And what you want to really be trying to do in these situations with click-to-website campaigns is emphasizing and selling the call. And the way you do that is, really low pressure, friendly face, a name, a person that's on there. Really, empathize with the potential patient that's landing on your assets. And we far too often see organizations talking too much about the actual programs and the services that they provide, rather than encouraging them just to call and talk to somebody. The other thing with landing pages is speed. It makes all the difference in the world. So there is a unique service that Google provides, or a unique site, the testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com, where you can enter your URL in there and it'll spit back a bunch of information for you to understand how you're performing speed-wise. Okay, and so you look at that and you understand, not only how you're comparing to others within the industry, but also how that's impacting viewers or visitors that you're getting or visitors that you're potentially losing. One of the things you also want to do with landing pages is obviously make it mobile responsive, right? We just talked about how important mobile is. Kind of goes without saying in today's world that people are doing more and more things on mobile. You got to make that mobile responsive, and there's different coding platforms that are out there that can help ensure that. And one of the ones that we recommend is accelerated or AMP HTML. So if you don't know what that is, just take a look at it. It's one that Google often recommends for designing pages to be mobile responsive. So now we're just going to look at a few examples of this. So what we did was just pick a couple examples and actually show you what it looks like when you're putting a website in there. We wanted to select something or an organization that is kind of very well known, and so we did a little test with this with Betty Ford. And so you would think, obviously, very well known, has a lot of brand cachet, probably performs pretty well in these areas, right? They actually don't. So 9 seconds is some of their returns on loading time. Anything again over 4 seconds, you're losing potentially a lot of visitors. So speed is really important with these. Again, on this example, 29% visitor loss according to Think with Google. Look at it from an industry comparison, and they're on the far end of the spectrum there. Now, fortunately for them, again, they are a very unique service and a very unique clinic that caters to a specific type of audience. So they can overcome some of these things. And for other organizations that maybe aren't in the same boat as them, it is really imperative that you get the speed right. So this would be an example of a good one. Again, 4 seconds. We've even seen examples where 3 seconds and under is pretty good, and you just see the return on the visitor in the green. So that's kind of the crux of landing pages. Again, you want to make them mobile responsive, fast loading, follow all the best practices for language and different copy that you actually have on there, so you're encouraging people to call. What we're going to talk about next is looking at some of the trends and data that we've seen, and this is really a lot of interesting insights with regards to when you're running pay-per-click campaigns, how you can target across different demographic and geographic lines. So when we've done a lot of work within the behavioral health space, we've seen certain trends, right? And so, for example, when we're looking at differences of gender, females tend to search and click more on high intent keywords, and high intent keywords being things that really show intent to become an admission. So residential treatment centers near me, long-term care treatment centers, those types of things. What's surprising though, or maybe not surprising, but what's interesting is that while they tend to search and click more, males tend to have higher conversion rates at a lower cost per call. And so you may be getting more volume, more quantity from females in this particular example, but of the conversion rates, it's showing that males are outperforming, especially as it relates to alcohol and treatment containing search terms. So the one thing I want to emphasize with these, and we're going to go through a few of these slides where it talks about some of these trends and insights that we're seeing. We never view this, though, as like hard rules, right? So we're not saying don't target females, for example. What you want to do is just make sure you're using these insights to structure your campaigns appropriately. So for females, you may be more selective on the types of terms that you are using to target. Or you may be moving your bids up or down depending on how they're performing with some of these search terms. For males that show a higher intent to convert, you may be structuring your messaging in your ads a little bit differently, right? So again, all these things are just interesting insights that we find, and what's important for you as you're looking at your own efforts and scaling out pay-per-click campaigns is to making sure you're looking at data like this too, because in some cases it may be different, right? In every situation, every organization is different. So with regards to age, we often see the 35 to 54 age group convert more often with alcohol search terms. 65 and over is a little tricky. Obviously, a lot of times they may not qualify. Some may be, maybe on Medicare, those types of things. So you have to be a little more selective there. We've seen success there though when you're looking at search terms related to loved ones, for example. So again, we're not saying that you don't want to target 65 and over. You just have to think about them differently than you would, other age or other gender groups. Okay, some more specific ones with specific keywords containing drug abuse or intervention. Again, younger group does not perform as well as 25 and older for drug abuse. 45 and higher converts more often on these terms. And then similarly with intervention, again, so women in this case that we found tend to search more and also convert more at a higher rate. So versus the last slide where we were talking about women searching and clicking more, but not necessarily as high an intent to convert. For something like intervention, the data that we've seen is that they're doing both. So again, just things to keep in mind, and the point of it all is to be looking at your own data and understanding what sort of insights you can draw from it. Another interesting one with regards to demographics is groups of patients that really want to be a little more anonymous, right? So for example, they may be searching private rehab, executive rehab, luxury rehab. If they're a maybe well-known figure or somebody that for whatever reason just doesn't want anybody to know that they're seeking help. We've seen some interesting correlations between those search terms and users that are hiding who they are from Google or Bing. So we call those undetermined in terms of their gender. And there's different ways where you can do that, not being signed into a browser, using certain blocking tools, that sort of thing. And what's interesting is it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Folks that are more aware or trying to emphasize the privacy of the experience, would also be trying to emphasize the privacy from Google and other things. So when you look at these things, you can start to connect certain search terms with different genders and different age groups that you're trying to reach. And so something like this is a good example of that. Okay, looking at some geographic targeting strategies. So one of the things that we often find is that organizations don't even consider targeting out-of-state prospective patients. And I don't want to say that this is something that everybody should do. It's certainly not, but it's something you should consider. Again, it's really all about kind of getting the most value, the most bang for your buck, because in a lot of situations, you can actually reach valuable potential leads at the right price and experience a much lower bid and a much lower cost per qualified call. So it takes a unique skill set, obviously, for the team that you have in place. It's a different conversation than a local or a regional potential patient. But for the right structure, it can give you great value. So always something we encourage organizations to consider. One of the things that we're going to start looking at here is just certain examples of this in particular case, demographic targeting, but on the next few keywords as well. So these are just little anomalies that we've come across over time that are really interesting. And again, the key here is, the takeaway is for you to examine some of your key regional or local neighborhoods that you might be targeting. So Flushing in the New York City area, for whatever reason, we've always seen it not perform well in terms of the investment towards conversion rate or qualified call or admission. So again, you want to be looking at these different neighborhoods that you're targeting and understanding the data that's coming back to you, whether that be through Google's platform, whether that be through your CRM, whether that be through if you have call tracking in place. So there's lots of these different tools that you can leverage to measure and identify some of these areas that are performing well or ones that just don't happen to be performing well. The other thing is keywords. So not just with regions, but we see a lot of keywords that you think on paper look good, and for whatever reason, Google and Bing connect these with the search term that a user typed in that is completely unrelated. And some of these are a little, borderline vulgar, but we didn't make these up. They're real search terms that people put in, and they match certain keywords that we had put out there. So somebody is, you think you're putting together a good keyword campaign by including drug treatment center, and it's matching you with somebody who searched drug court phone number. Obviously not, a lead that is fitting the intent of what they're trying to search for, and one that you probably don't want to be targeting. So the takeaway here is, when you're assembling your keywords that you want to be using, take the time to do the searches yourself and see what kind of results you're getting, right? And see, as you start to put these campaigns into market, what kind of search terms are matching your keywords. And you can quickly identify if a keyword is working or if it's not working, right? And what types of viewers are searching for it and getting matched with it. It's an interesting stat. So you think, Google is obviously this huge enterprise, right? They had a stat a couple years ago that out of even trillions of searches that they process throughout a year, about 15% of them are new searches that have never been searched before, which is pretty sizable if you think about it. I mean, that's so there's new searches happening all the time, and what happens is, whether it's through certain groupings of words, certain phrasing of keywords, or new searches, you're just bound to get, as we call it, match type mayhem, and so you just got to look out for that. So this really transitions into negative keywords, and really specific for the behavioral health industry. Some of the things that you want to be on the lookout for as it relates to certain things that just don't match well. And they might, again, the keyword might look good on paper, but if you're not aware of these certain what I would call subcategories, then your keywords aren't going to perform well. So certain celebrities, TV shows, news events, a lot of synonyms to health-related rehab, as well as other recovery-related synonyms, free or subsidized treatment centers, and then we'll talk about some tricky or misleading keywords. So a few examples of these, and this one doesn't come through if you can't see it in the back. Basically, the search is rehab addict, which on paper sounds like a great search term that you'd want to, or keyword that you'd want to include. The problem is it's a show on DIY, and so even from an organic search perspective, if you type that into Google, every result that comes up is all about that show. So you want to be aware of something like that. When you combine some of these things with location, it can cause problems too. So this one is Rehab Las Vegas, which again, if you're in the Las Vegas area and you think that's a good search term on paper, or a good keyword on paper, the problem is there's a nightclub, a party hotel that goes by the same name. Also with locations, even if you're aware of the TV show, or in this case a nightclub that might match it, and you don't think that there's any of that out there, even just specific locations can drive weird results. So this one, again, I don't know if you can see it, but the search term there is Brighton Beach Rehab. And you're getting a lot of results back for nursing homes. You're getting things back for, 10 rehabilitation centers near Brighton Beach, which could be all different kinds of rehabilitation, right? So again, the underlining thing here is just making sure you're doing these searches for yourself, and you're also examining, what kind of results you're getting back. Detox is a tricky one. So, on paper, detox is a good keyword, right? Again, not making these up. These are some of the results we've seen come back from including detox. So just evaluating, which ones are, right for your organization, which ones are irrelevant, and understanding how those matches are coming back in. You want to make sure you're on top of that. So again, our message is take the time, put in the work, analyze, see who's searching, making sure you're on top, and forming a list of negative keywords in order to save you money in the long run. So we'll transition now into spend management, and spend management is really all about how you're, the settings you're using to launch your campaigns, and how you're, as it says, managing the spend and the investment across different areas. So Google is really interesting. They have a couple different ways to deliver your ads, and they have standard versus accelerated, and you can, if you're not careful about it, really lose out on a lot of things with both, actually. So what happens is, in a standard campaign, let's say you're bidding higher than the competition on a particular keyword, and that day your ads are running really hot, so they're appearing all the time, right? Well, what will happen is because you've mandated in Google, I have this budget and I want to run the campaign for this many days, Google is going to actually pause your campaign, which in theory sounds like it's good, so you can run it for the full time, but what's happening there is you're missing out on a lot of potential searchers by getting your campaign paused throughout the day. So it may be, and Google's got these algorithms, we don't know exactly, the science and how it's done, but it might be 10 minutes every hour, for example, right? Whereas the accelerated approach, if you could get in trouble with that too, because you could just burn through, all your budget right away. And so really the way to kind of solve that is going about and managing your bids by adjusting them. So when you set your bids and you start seeing some of these results come in, if your bids are too high and your ad is running really hot that day, you can lower them and vice versa, and look at different ways to monitor the bids rather than just using their built-in budget cap and kind of setting it and forgetting it, if you will. So it's an area that, again, if you're looking to not just use pay-per-click as a sort of checkbox, really use it as a way to drive to your core business goals. These are some of the methods that we would recommend that you should put in place. This screenshot on the right, the red boxed area, just shows if you do get limited by your budget. So if your ads are getting paused, that's actually what you'll see. And again, you want to be aware of that and making sure that that's not happening. A way to do that is to build out a script. This is just a screenshot of an example we use. So what this is doing is collecting all the data over a daily time frame. So looking at the spend breakdown, looking at how it's performing, what it's getting back. And so just an example of how you're going to want to monitor this stuff in order to manage those different bids. Okay, and then the last part here, talking about Google and Bing and looking at just the various ads that go into it. There's really two schools of thought on what your goals should be and what you're trying to accomplish. Generating lower cost per call versus generating lower cost per qualified call. And this is just what I was speaking to earlier. If you view pay-per-click as an opportunity to really enhance your business efforts as opposed to just being another marketing checkbox, if you will, we really recommend you take the time to focus on generating lower cost per qualified call. Quality, matters more than quantity. Obviously, you need quantity too, but when you're focused more on the quality, it tends to produce better results. And the way to do that is really start by just defining in your own situation what a qualified call is for your individual organization. For some companies, it might be verification of benefits check. Others, it might be a certain stage that caller has reached within your database, your CRM, right? So it tends to not be a one-size-fits-all, and we encourage organizations to kind of take ownership of what they think their criteria is for a qualified call. And you can identify this stuff not only by looking at the things there, but also talking to people that are on the phone, talking to your customer service, talking to others within your organization, talking even to patients, and trying to understand what real quality looks like for you. From there, you'll be able to calculate certain things like your calls to admission rates, and you can determine how much you're really paying for every qualified call. And again, looking at how you can use that criteria and those insights to influence how you're going to be using your bids moving forward, whether you're, again, raising, lowering, those sort of things, looking at specific keywords, excluding things for more non-qualified callers. Lots of benefits, obviously. I think goes without saying, qualified calls is better than a non-qualified call. One of the things I want to point out, though, is it has a big impact on call centers or on other sales support customer service staff, right? So if you think about it in their world, if you're getting a lot of calls coming in that are low quality, it can really impact morale. It can, every time the phone rings, they expect a low quality call. They're not ready for a good one if it comes in. So it has all these benefits that we're talking about, but that's one that's often overlooked because it's not as maybe tangible thing that people think about. It's more, something that's kind of an afterthought, but we see it a lot with organizations. Obviously, this, again, gives you better intelligence, allows you to reallocate your dollars the right way, and again, most importantly, gives you more admissions for your ad spend. Okay, so that's all things Google and Bing ads, and now we're just going to transition into talking about Facebook, and again, similar sort of strategies in terms of how to target, how to structure your campaigns, what you should be going for, what some of the goals you should have in mind for. So Facebook is really, in terms of putting together the right campaigns for them, it's really about structuring your campaigns based on behavior. Okay, so one of the things you can do in Facebook is go in and put a bunch of criteria around demographics, geographics, all the similar things that we just talked about. Another thing you can do though is actually do a closed loop approach where you're remarketing to qualified visitors based on the engagement they've already had with you, right? So folks that have visited your site, been to a certain number of pages, viewed key pages that are more related to, calling or conversions, took an action on your site, whether it be filling out a form, engaging in a chat, watching video, consuming different content, those sorts of things. And when you do this, it'll allow Facebook to start to build what's known as like a lookalike audience. So Facebook's algorithms will collect this data and determine similar characteristics to audiences that are out there and make it more likely that your campaigns are going to match those that are the best fit for it, right? And so one of the things with this is Facebook Pixel. If you're not familiar with Facebook Pixel, basically at a high level, it's a piece of code that you can grab from Facebook and develop it into your site so that it gives you just a better line of sight towards visitors that are coming from Facebook and converting as admits or as qualified callers or taking more action on your site, right? And so we always encourage people to leverage a Facebook Pixel because, again, it's kind of that closed loop approach that'll inform Facebook of targeting more of the right users. Now, one of the things that's kind of a maybe not as well known of a tip is what we call delay the firing of Facebook Pixel. So, developers can do this where if you have somebody that can grab the code from Facebook and they add in another piece of code, basically it will only engage Facebook Pixel after, say, the first 5 seconds. So what you do is you're eliminating the leads that are coming from Facebook onto your site and leaving your site right away, because those all in likely aren't the visitors that we want to continue to target, right? They clicked on an ad, but found no relevance or moved on quickly to something else. What we want to do is create an audience, a lookalike audience of folks that are spending more than 3, 4, or 5 seconds on our site, right? So when you utilize Facebook Pixel, it'll collect that data, and when you delay the firing, it'll only focus on those leads that are spending some time on your site. And again, it'll kind of create a snowball effect, right? So you get more, and you get more highly targeted. Okay, let's talk about the aspects of your actual ad. So this is, again, some of the things that are more related to the setup of it and just some tips on creating it. As far as more of the user-facing ad itself, a lot of people confuse Facebook ads with AdWords and Bing, and they're very different. Creative, the actual creative ad itself is tends to be much more important for something like Facebook. In particular, video plays a much bigger role. We've seen a lot of lower costs and cheaper clicks that you can achieve by using video instead of static images. It's a great opportunity, within our space is testimonials, whether it be through an actual patient or, you can do things for very low cost by bringing somebody in to talk about certain things. People and pets, people love pets, right? So a little just tidbit in talking about including certain things like that into video. The main point here is don't go cheap on the video. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to get your creative done and get the ad out as soon as possible. If you have to, if you only have a limited budget, we rather recommend that you spend that first month's budget just on creating the ad, or just on creating the ad and the creative itself, right? Just on creating the video. And then, even if it's month 1, month 2, that you're just spending your money on that, by month 2, by month 3, you'll be in a position to have a great piece of creative that has a much higher likelihood of really grabbing attention and getting user interaction. Okay, some of the things associated with video and certain copies and calls to action that you want to focus on is, Facebook really gives you a great opportunity to use a lot of different call to actions in one particular ad or one ad set. So for example, we recommend that organizations in their video have a call to action at the end of it. So whoever's talking says, click on the link below or call this number at the end of the video, whatever the case may be. But you want to include as many calls to action as you can. So several links within the description of the ad. You can put it even in the comments section. And you always want to use as much of the space and the assets that Facebook offers in order to be successful. So use a headline above your creative, caption below your creative. The only thing you have to watch out for with these types of things, and again, from a regulation and making sure we're following the rules on it, is you can't assume that anybody in your audience is suffering from a particular condition. Right? So typically the rule of thumb is to avoid you or your or things of that nature. Right? You can say new treatment available for XYZ, right? But you can't say if you're suffering from XYZ, click here. Those are the things to watch out for. So Facebook obviously gets a lot of ads, and what they're looking to do, what their mission is really to pick winning ads that fit their audience best, right? And so one trick here is to examine, if you have multiple ads running, look at the ones that are really performing highest for you and make minor alterations to those and create new ad sets that you can run alongside the ones that are really performing well. So when I say minor alterations, I mean deleting a period, doing things that are so minor that they're basically the same thing, but because they're already leveraging, fitting well with audience and having a lot of engagement and resonance, Facebook will continue to post or continue to reach the right audience with those ads. And vice versa, right? So you can look at ad sets that aren't performing well and understanding that you probably don't want to keep those ones running. Okay, another opportunity with Facebook is in the type of campaign. So if you haven't run Facebook ads before, it gives you lots of different goal-related campaign options. So whether you want to drive traffic to your website or whether you want to increase conversions on a form, right? Engagement campaigns can be really powerful as well. So engagement campaigns are structured differently with Facebook to the point that they're, as the name says, encouraging engagement. So likes, shares, comments, as opposed to clicking on a link and going to a landing page. The real value here is that every ad set in Facebook is given a relevancy score, okay? And the more you can increase your score, the better chance it gives you for achieving lower ad costs on Facebook. So more engagement gets you a higher score, gets you lower costs, and again, really gives you the value and the biggest bang for your buck. All right, so again, just to kind of summarize everything we talked about, the one thing that is probably missing from here at the top is obviously legit script. So if you're looking to run pay-per-click campaigns on through Google, you want to make sure that you're getting legit script certified. The one area that I kind of passed over when we were talking about legit script is some of the questions that they have can, if you're not careful in spending your time on it, I mean, maybe some of you experienced this when you were going through it, but can be, a little bit tricky. So they use the term, I think it's recovery residencies, and different from residential treatment centers. So recovery residencies, they are trying to block basically people that are providing services out of a private residence, right? Versus recovery treatment centers, which obviously are okay in their book. Same thing with the lead generators who are passing leads on to organizations. So LegitScript has a lot of this language in their terms and conditions on their site. And again, with a lot of this stuff, it's just about taking the time and making sure you're not misstepping on something and making sure you're answering correctly the questions that will get you certified. But anyway, going back to this, we talked about click-to-website campaigns. Some people also call those click-to-call campaigns. You'll see both language out there. Tend to perform better than call-only campaigns when used with call extensions. When creating these campaigns, obviously you want to focus on call-optimized, mobile-friendly, mobile-responsive, fast-loading landing pages. We talked a lot about demographic and geographic insights to really improve your campaigns, negative keywords, and looking at the overall search terms that you're getting and how you can examine those. And then best practices for spend management, not relying on those built-in budget caps that'll limit when your ads are running. And then, really focusing on the quality over the quantity. And then with Facebook, talking about target by behavior, build those lookalike audiences, leverage Facebook pixels so that it's firing on a little bit of a delay. You're focusing on the users, the viewers that are really high intent, and making sure you're taking the time and investing the money on the quality of the creative, even if it takes you the first month, the first 2 months to kind of get that off the ground. That's all I got. Any questions? I didn't put anyone to sleep, did I? Yeah. So I think it goes back to a lot of the things that we talked about with some of the insights you're going to get with also the demographic and the geographic things that you're seeing coming in. So initially, when you're putting ads out there, right, and you're looking at, are you referring to Facebook or Google and Bing? Facebook. Okay, I'm sorry, I was talking about Google and Bing. So quality really refers to, especially in video. Really high quality video, things that's not, just looks professional, I guess is the best way to say it. And it surprises a lot of people that it's not super expensive to shoot a really high quality video. You can buy equipment, you can get equipment for not that much, and it can still be pretty high quality. You don't want, things that just don't look professional, I guess is the best way to put it. You want videos that are also really engaging. So following practices such as, a personal story, a testimonial, things that involve, sort of that emotional appeal, if you will. A lot of the things with Facebook in general, whether you're advertising or just posting organically, it's not sell, it's tell, right? So you don't want to necessarily come across as very salesy on social media, especially through Facebook ads. It's more about, again, trying to drive the engagement by relating on a one-to-one level, very personal, and not trying to sell your services. It's very different than obviously a Google ad, which is more about direct action, calling in, those sort of things. So very professional looking. If you're not doing video, good quality images are good too, but it's got to have a connection. Does that answer your question? Okay.
In your experience, do you ever see where maybe lower quality videos, like the cell phone videos, do help generate, people coming to your site on Facebook specifically?
Sure.
Just kind of okay, because like we have a therapy dog,
Yeah.
Facebook video of him just on our phone in the park doing dog stuff,
Sure.
interacting with strangers. Do you think that would be a good quality something to put on, even though it's just a cell phone video, or should that be something we just completely step away from?
So I would say it never hurts to test and try, right? So I wouldn't say don't do it just because it's on the cell phone, right? So I would encourage you to, put some ad dollars behind it, see how it performs, and kind of base it off the results that you're getting, and also seeing how it's relating to some of your other assets that you've used. So whether it's, again, organic posts, boosted posts, or other ad campaigns that you've run, and looking at how those things differ. But I think the the positive of something like, a video like that with a happy dog running around outweighs the potential quality of it. And especially if that's something that you already have at your disposal today, definitely leverage it, right? When you think about this stuff in the future and you think about, creating more videos potentially and seeing how this one is performing compared to other assets, that's when you might think about, really how can I optimize this approach to video.
Thank you. I apologize if you spoke to this already, but can you talk about the difference between when you boost a post versus doing the Facebook ad? I mean, kind of
Sure. No, I didn't touch on that. It's a good question. So there are definitely pros and cons. They can do some similar things, but some of the main differences that I always like to highlight is that with Facebook ads, you have more control and you can target at a more precise rate. And so again, it's kind of similar to when we were talking about call only versus click to website campaigns. Call only is very low maintenance, lower effort. Boosting on Facebook is likely lower maintenance, lower effort because it's a quicker process. But the problem is you don't reach as many people. You can't target as specifically, so the quality again might suffer a little bit. There are situations where, boosting definitely makes sense. And the other thing to think about with that is you don't want your Facebook page to just be filled with ads, right? So if I'm viewing an ad and then as opposed to clicking on a link, I decide to go to your page and I just see nothing but ads and no organic posts, no even boosted posts, that can come across negatively. So in general, if you're looking to, really, I would test both. I mean, I don't think it's wrong to, I would do organic, I would do boosted, I would do Facebook ads and see what kind of results you're getting because different content can play differently everywhere. And again, as I said before, a lot of this stuff is unique to different organizations and what they're trying to do. But in general, you can reach more people, you can target more effectively with Facebook ads.
I actually started this sober home, and so it's really brand new, and so I'm still even working on putting my website together. So I did boosted Facebook ads, but I noticed a couple of observations. One, when I told a very personal story, which was the why behind Memorial, honestly, not previous employer name, why behind Immune Recovery.
Sure.
Oh my God, it got like 16,000 views.
Wow.
And tons of interactions. Didn't really produce anything, but
Sure.
people were. What it did produce is it got a lot of likes.
Sure.
The page got a lot of likes. So
Yeah.
at least for those people, they'll see other things that's posted. But I tried to tweak around with the parameters,
Mm-hmm.
the audience, that I was looking to reach. It was pretty skewed. I mean, I was kind of surprised, but I probably started too broad because I said Texas.
Sure.
But it seemed to be heavily concentrated in like the border
Okay.
down south.
Yeah.
Like even in Mexico.
Sure.
Some people. So anyhow, but I was just curious about that in terms of whether
Yeah.
to do paid ads versus boosted ads, do a blend of both.
I would think it's worth testing, doing a little bit of both. The other thing with this is obviously the associated content that you're using with those ads. So like you just talked about how that one really had a high performance, and thinking about content in association with the channel that you're using, right? So we think about it in our own lives when we go about making significant purchases and the type of interactions we have along the way across that sort of buying journey, right? And so as I said before, Facebook obviously is less about selling, it's more about engagement and interaction. And so, but to answer your question, it's worth testing both and it's worth doing both. And in general, the things that you see that are working well, as I said, you can make minor tweaks to those and duplicate that kind of ad set in order to continue to optimize your approach and increase that relevancy score. So that's really what a lot of the keys are for engagement style campaigns.
Definitely a huge difference when you boost and you don't boost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Yes.
Do you have a sweet spot in terms of video length?
Say that again. Video length.
A sweet spot in terms of video
I generally see if there's mistakes being made, it's too long of a video than too short of a video. It depends on the type of content that you're doing and what type of video you're doing. But for something like Facebook, I wouldn't go too much more than maybe a minute and a half at the most. Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering when they get rid of much of the behavioral targeting, like the income targeting and stuff, is that going to affect lookalike audiences or what?
Is that going to affect what? Lookalike audiences?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I can't say one way or another right now. I mean, we're hearing different things, but it's probably similar to what you've heard. I don't know if that's going to have a direct impact. I mean,
I only noticed something's banned when it's flat on the existing campaign right now.
sure. I mean, and again, a lot of this stuff is obviously dependent on information that users are sharing or information that Facebook has access to for those things. So, for one person, it may make a difference. For others, it doesn't. I think I tell you what, a good answer for that would be, to me, I would expect that it would be less of an impact than something that's really going to, be anything earth-shattering. Only because, again, it's some of those things with lookalikes are more so based on the behaviors they tend to be, as opposed to strictly the demographics or income levels in this case, that type of thing. That would be my assumption, but I'm not sure if it's gonna how much of an impact that's gonna have until they really put it in place.
I have a follow-up for you, but this might be premature.
Yeah.
Now that they're showing promotions on people's actual Facebook pages for transparency, do you have any thoughts on the sweet spot for the amount of ads you should run? I mean, obviously, the user can look me up like 150.
Sure. So for you're talking about running through Facebook?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
So she's asking about, now that you can see ads if I'm understanding correctly, within Google, about how you're running them on Facebook. Is there a sweet spot of number of how many you should be running or whatnot? I don't know that I have a good answer for that, to be honest. The only other thing that I would offer that's related to that, I don't know if do you do dark posting with Facebook? Are you familiar with that? So dark post, and I may be getting ahead of myself because I don't know if this still shows up on Google or not, but basically, you're shaking your head, it doesn't, right? Yeah, so there's a thing with Facebook where you can do dark posts, and basically what that does is still allows you to run an ad, but when you go to your company's page, from the viewer's perspective, you won't necessarily see that ad through your timeline. So it may appear later, it may not appear at all, but it limits the amount of ads that actually show up on your timeline, on your page. So, and like you were just saying, that doesn't translate to Google. So I don't know if there's a good number, but dark posting would be a way to kind of limit at least the external exposure of what the viewer sees.
So, as far as you guys know, that hasn't been affected by the new policy of showing all ads?
As far as I know, yeah.
I know it's early.
Yeah, exactly. Yes?
So my understanding is that when it comes to internet advertising, it's Facebook, it's Google, and it's like 90%. But is there a platform that's growing currently, like Twitter or Snapchat or something, to the extent that it's worthwhile to be dedicating resources, limited resources, to that platform because of this issue?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have one that comes to mind, to be honest, just because those two do dominate the space. And as we talked about today, there's ways you can outperform your competitors, even though it is a very crowded space, versus going to a channel that is less prone to those things or maybe a bit smaller in size. The other, this is somewhat related, maybe doesn't exactly talk about your question, but the other thing that recently came down is that previously marketers were allowed to limit ads from showing up on mobile apps. because, and this was very beneficial, right? Because they found that there was a very low quality conversion through mobile apps, and that's going away. So it's just a channel that I don't know if it has opportunity. It's seen as a negative, obviously, because there's, again, lower conversion on that. But it's something that just came down recently that will be happening. But for us, I mean, we tend to do, you know, the majority of our work within Google and Facebook. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming, and hope it was enjoyable. Thanks.